Okay, so everyone can see my screen? Leslie, can you see? Okay.
Yes, we are good, Lauren.
I'm sorry, can someone say that again?
Yes, Lauren, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. All right, well, then I'm going to get started. My name is Lauren Matthews. I am, I guess now Associate Clinical Faculty in the Department of Audiology and Speech Language Pathology. I say now because I guess 16 years ago, I started as an adjunct supervising in our clinic, then went to lecture, went through the ranks through principal lecture. The university kind of did an audit of what people actually did in their workload versus their title. And they had some of us change over to clinical faculty. And I think some of you might be clinical faculty also. So that is why I still have to kind of think about my title because it's new as of this fall, even though I've been here 16 years. So like I said, Department of Audiology and Speech Language Pathology. I'm a speech language pathologist. I'm going to let my other presenter introduce herself, and then we'll kind of get into what the NTFMN does.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Roberts. It's great to see some new faces. I've been scrolling through and looking at names and looking at your smiling faces, and it's so good to see you. I'm a principal lecturer in the Department of Public Administration. I'm a lawyer by training and trade, still practice law, still do lots of training, but my area in which I focus primarily in my practice and at UNT is conflict resolution. So without further ado, let's have Lauren get started with telling you more about our network of non-tenure track faculty.
Great, thank you, Leslie. So I'm going to start with our purpose to better support full-time non-tenure track faculty by creating a mentoring community of like-minded, career-focused, and personally involved professionals. So I believe we've gone through our first year as a full formalized mentoring group supported by the university. But what we saw is that we had some of these different things kind of going on, but we actually formalized into this group last year. And it truly is a support network. We really listen to we have a leadership group, but we listen to all of the different non-tenure track faculty and what can we do, this mentoring group, to help support each other. So I'll keep going. And so we have 3 outcomes that we have focused on: professional support network and mentoring network. So really this is a formalized place that we can get together and talk. You know, sometimes you just want to talk to someone that might have some other ideas than you. Maybe sometimes you got to vent some frustration to someone that might understand what you're going through versus the tenure track who doesn't have a 4-4 load. They just have their 2 classes and you're like, it's not the same, or your class of 25 is not the same of my class of, you know, 100 to 500. So talking, just really having that organized way that we can get together and just talk. So that was outcome number 1. Of course, we're all really pretty much here to teach. So to facilitate that growth in our teaching, you can never stop growing in this, right? Our students are always evolving and changing. So our teaching needs to always evolve and change. And I will say, of course, this is just speaking for me, but I do feel like overall UNT does a very good job at providing us different opportunities to, you know, learn different technology. I feel like clear they're probably like any other entity like themselves. They're overworked, but if you need somebody, you can usually get someone to help you learn. But really, how do you know you want to even do that? Sometimes just, just talking with other people, or really what we're here to do is listen to those areas that you do want to grow as a teacher and provide those opportunities. And so when we were face to face, but then we continued virtually also, and we'll go into that kind of our structure, but we were able to provide different topics and meetings through monthly groups, as well as we did a pedagogy journal group last year. So those were the two ways, presentation, bringing speakers in, and then the journal group is how we provided support in teaching. And then our third outcome, just that support and mentoring opportunities, again, that face-to-face or just virtually face-to-face, through discussions of identified topics of need and dissemination of correct information. So kind of what we saw is that, the university's big. And so what someone in one department or one college might hear might be different than what someone else might hear. Or what we're seeing a whole lot is implementation of policies and procedures are often very different between colleges and departments. And so having just a place to go to when you're like, wait, I'm told I can't go up for promotion, but I hear this person does, and they're here the same amount as me. Just having a resource to go to help you try to figure out really what is, what can you do? And sometimes being an advocate, finding someone to be that advocate with you to help you through a process, again, of someone that's probably already gone through, possibly already gone through what you're trying to do. And I'm not, there's many positive things, but sometimes there are, harder things to work through, or you don't understand something that you just need that assistance with. And so that's kind of what this outcome is. Excuse me, is helping us navigate those policies and procedures, and just help us through kind of our everyday here at the university. So those are our three outcomes. Leslie, you might want to just start with kind of what we did, and then maybe kind of these year one results. Is that good?
Yes, I'd love to.
Thanks.
And everyone, it's Leslie here. So we've now had one full academic year as a networking group, and we've accomplished really a lot more than we thought, and we've had terrific participation when we were face-to-face, and we continued our efforts virtually, and we had pretty decent participation among a number of people once we had to go virtual. So let us tell you a little bit about what we did primarily when we were face-to-face. We had about 7 different events. They consisted of networking luncheon events, and I know that lunch is a pretty good draw, and I know that that helped enhance our participation. Nobody's gonna lie about that. But we had some great speakers. A couple that come to mind were the previous Vice Provost for Faculty Success talked about policies and procedures that apply to us and helped us nail down where to find things, because some of us found it difficult to find things that informed our behaviors on campus, our rules that we had to follow, but yet we weren't sure what all of them were. So we did that early on. Another really interesting topic, in my opinion, is that Lauren conducted a presentation during lunch about teaching neurodivergent students. And it's a fascinating topic, and it's certainly a challenge, but it's something that UNT insists that we all get better at. So we heard that from our survey results and our tabletop discussions during our networking events. And so we provided that. We also had others come in to talk about student engagement and topics that instructors are very, very much interested in. We had some pedagogy discussion groups, which were certainly smaller. And the goal was to bring in journal articles of interest to really guide our discussions about how do we offer instruction in a more effective way. And so the topics were broad at times and then narrow at times. And I found that when we did do them, it ended up being a really good sharing experience, that we almost put the journal articles to the side and really talked about how do we practically do this and what are the advantages, disadvantages, how did you do this, how did you do that? It was a really good experience to just give you ideas to try something different. And so we want to make the pedagogy discussion groups more robust in the coming academic year. It's possible that we picked maybe the least workable times for many people. So we are reconsidering when we offer certain things to make it more available to everyone. But we're going to continue those and make them more robust. We also conducted a survey of needs, and we left it open for a fair amount of time. We got great responses in terms of the response rates. We got great input in terms of giving us a good sense of how people perceive a number of different areas, but we also got handwritten, well, written in comments that gave us suggestions. And you know, those are really always valuable. If you want me to, Lauren, if we have enough time, I can go and give you, the whole group, a sense of some of the survey results, if you'd like to do that. But one of the last things we did, and we had to do it remotely, was that we presented really just a report for our first year. And we gave Vice Provost Combs and Provost Cowley a summary of our survey results. And we really told them how the group perceives things. There was a lot of positive, and then there definitely showed areas for growth, things that support needs that are really, really critical, and areas where, if improved, will make our workplace a much better workplace for non-tenure track faculty. So if we have time, Lauren, do you think we have time to just add a couple of thoughts on that survey results? Or do you all want to ask questions instead?
Let's maybe open it up. Sorry, let's maybe open it up to questions here.
Okay.
And then if we have time, because you know, them sitting through orientation, they might have some burning questions for us.
We've got 13 minutes, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. What questions do you all have that you'd like to ask us?
So my name is Todd Uglow. I just came from UNLV, where I was, the title that I held back at that university is called Faculty in Residence, which is sort of similar to what we have here in terms of lecturers. I was there 15 years, and I would say definitely at that university there was a perception of the teaching faculty being much below, I guess you could say, the research faculty. I've definitely not felt that way here so far, and I just wanted to know what your thoughts were in terms of how you make sure that that doesn't happen. I mean, it's sort of hundreds of years of tradition, right, that faculty are researchers, and I understand that that's hard to change, right? But where I came from, it really was primarily applied and teaching. So, but there was still that kind of disparity. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Todd, I think, this is Leslie. Todd, I think, and Lauren, certainly offer your opinion, but you know, I don't like stereotyping, because I think that rarely are they accurate. But I think that there certainly are pockets where you will find that to some degree, and there are going to be pockets where you really don't find it. And I think that having started as an adjunct in 2005 or 6, while I was still in my private practice, and then moving to full-time faculty in 2011. Certainly since 2011, I've seen real change in terms of attitudes of we're all in this together. We all contribute, and some of us may contribute something different, but they are all equally valued. Now, that is somewhat aspirational, it's somewhat accurate, and then it's somewhat inaccurate. It depends on the group, but increasingly it is more widely shared than not. And I think that shows growth, and I think change like this would be comparable to maybe societal, cultural change. That takes a long time, at least a generation. So I think there's growth and there's improvement, and we're all working on that. And so I hope that you can come to us in 6 months to a year and say, here's what I found. But what I can say is that this group, this networking group, is a good opportunity for you to share experiences, find out and compare your experiences with others, and talk to others where it's safe to talk and ask about overcoming those challenges. Because it's one thing for one person to be in fine shape and for another colleague to not be. We want to work so that all of our colleagues do well. Okay.
Todd, can I say,
Thank you.
I think one huge difference here is our provost and our vice provost. Provost Callie is if I don't know if it's the right word, but she is a fan of non-tenure track. She really sees, and did she use that wording? She said some kind of similar wording to that when we've talked to her in the past. She sees the need for every line type that we have. And she says that every line type to her is equally valued, or we wouldn't be here, right? From librarians to the clinical faculty, to the lecturers, to the tenured track, everyone is needed. We're here for a purpose. And I will say, I really like her words, but I feel like her actions have matched her words. She has made some different policy changes in the past 2 years, and y'all, policy changes, like Leslie was saying, change takes a long time. And I feel like she's made some fairly significant policy changes in the past couple of years to make our life better, as far as equal type of leave, some other things, Leslie, you might be able to give.
Access. Access would be one word that I think counts. Todd, you might understand what I'm trying to say, is that if you don't get access, you never get to play right at the card table, right? You got to get a seat. And I think that maybe what Lauren's describing is policy changes that provide access.
And I 100% agree with you. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah. So I think that
Vice Provost Combs is, I've known her for a while. I think she's a big fan of non-tenure track faculty as well.
she is. So I feel like we have two advocates in a very high place, that if you don't have that, then you've already put up a big barrier, right? And so another thing I was going to tell you is that the Faculty Senate has heard some of the issues also that have come from the different university surveys, our surveys, and they started an ad hoc committee for non-tenure track issues that started last January. And there's several of us that are on the leadership team of the non-tenure track faculty mentoring network that are also on that Faculty Senate ad hoc to try to kind of bridge, and they have different purposes, really. That is so much about procedure and policy change to support what we're doing. We're really the mentoring part of it, but we saw the need to have some cross there. So I feel like maybe what you're sensing is really administration is behind. And I agree with you. I really do. I mean, not, you know, you're always going to find exceptions to that, but overall, I feel like they are.
Thank you.
Yeah. 10 minutes later, but
No, I
who else
appreciate it.
has a question?
Can I make a suggestion to you all, just in anticipation of something you might face? Not everybody faces this. This is something I was challenged with. So don't let yourself be challenged by it. Ask for help if you hear this. When I joined full-time, I wanted to get on various committees because you have a, you know, depending on your workload, you might have about a 20% service obligation in your workload. If that's true, you need to do something to provide service to your department, your college, or the university. It can be hard when you're at a new university to know, what do I do to accomplish that? Don't sit and be frustrated. And if you don't recognize ideas or get help early, ask us for ideas and we will help you find service opportunities so that you don't fear not reaching the requirement your first year or first couple of years. So don't let that be a barrier because people don't come to you and offer you something. Go seek it out, but you might need help identifying opportunities.
And I totally agree with that. Yeah, there's way more service than there is people hours. So, but yeah, sometimes it is just finding it. And, you know, if you've already worked with someone, then that someone's usually going to ask you again because you're familiar, even though this person right next to them, you know, is maybe more qualified. But yeah, so, but that's one of the beauty of us really getting to know each other. I can go, oh, wait, Todd told me he likes this. And sorry to pick on you, Todd. So yeah, so she's exactly right. What other questions do y'all have?
I had a couple of questions. I don't want to maybe jump in here real quick. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine. At my last institution, so I was very similar to Todd, at 15 years at Southern Illinois University. Became professor of practice, worked my way through the system there. So I was a little bit maybe confused as to what the titles meant here, because I think they're different at every institution. I also noticed in terms of hiring, differences in titles. So then that, you know, I'm like, oh, these are a bunch of new people, but their titles may be, oh, but theirs says senior or whatever. So I was a little confused about that. I don't know if that's different from college to college. So I guess, Lauren, one of the things that you had mentioned is maybe some standardization starting to take place across the university, and maybe some standardization of language and how that's applied and the titles are applied. So my question had to do with, okay, so I'm starting over. I didn't care what my title was, because the way I looked at it is these are opportunities for promotion and maybe more money. So start me whatever title. So is there a clear path now that's outlined in terms of what we need to do to get to that next level? And are there time requirements, or can you bypass those time requirements? Todd and I have, I just mentioned Todd because he talked already, we have significant experience already at other institutions and maybe attained higher titles already. So what does that possibly mean for us here at UNT?
Leslie, do you want to take it or do you want me to take it?
Lauren, do you want to take that or do you want me to?
Well, I can, just because I'm pretty familiar with the promotion process. There is timelines. They will say, you know, this many years in teaching experience or equivalent. So you guys that have already been teaching for 15 would make those timeline probably, but they do say so many years at UNT also. Now, of course, that time at UNT is usually much shorter than the time that it is for, you know, so I think it's, what I saw is it was usually 2 to 3 years between each one. Is that correct, Leslie? Do you remember?
I think that it is, there's greater transparency today than there was just a few years ago. It used to be thumbnail sort of, yeah, 3 years, maybe in some colleges 5 years. It wasn't transparent. It wasn't standardized, Dennis, as you mentioned. And I think it has changed a great deal, where I believe the minimum is 3 years to go up for promotion. Some colleges or departments may say, well, minimum 3, but we like to see 5. So there may be some variation because of that. But I believe the university sets a minimum, and it will depend somewhat based on discipline, college, and department. But in addition to that, I think there are unwritten rules. And one of the things that we're trying to do, not only in this group by surfacing challenges, right? This is where it's what I said in our meeting with the provost is, this is where problems are going to bubble up. This is where we're going to hear about them. And then we can take those challenges to Vice Provost Combs, Provost Kelly when necessary, but also to this Faculty Senate Ad Hoc Committee, because we need to address the rules as they are written so that it does serve to standardize. What I would suggest is you meet the minimum written requirements, but you also find out what are the unwritten rules in terms of, does someone have to have a departmental sponsor? Do you have to have, I mean, what are the rules within your department, and know them before you jump in, and know those sorts of things. And in terms of the dossier that you have to produce, can you get assistance in producing it? Or in my case, a departing chair simply wrote most of mine for me because my department was being dissolved and I wouldn't have access. Could someone help you write it? Or is it all on you? You know, what are the rules that are acceptable within your department that another department might not do? So go to the policy, look at the written policy, and then look for any unwritten rules. And know, even if they are not in your favor, address them before you jump in so that it doesn't slow you down. But I think there's been great improvement in the last 3 years about making things more transparent and more standardized. There are a couple of workshops each semester about how to go up for promotion, and they talk about the rules there. And that's where you're going to get the greatest amount of transparency on the written rules.
And each department has their charter that has the rules for promotion for each one of the different levels. And actually each department just had to rewrite their charters in terms of promotion and tenure. So, so those should all be pretty up to date, but I was always told, you know, the first person you will read, see if you've met it, but the first person you always go to is your chair. Start with them. I think that's where you can get a little bit of the information on those unwritten rules or kind of the procedures of how your department supports you in that process. And I would think what we're hearing is that more departments support us through this process and want us to get a promotion versus, and we did have one that kind of said their chair was like, no, you can't go up for promotion. And everything she was reading said, yes, you can. So we kind of got her with some different people to help talk through and help her through that process. You know, she needed advocates outside of us. So we got those for her and to kind of work through that.
And there is a growing recognition that advocates are really important in these processes. I think that in those discussions that I've had with people who do that regularly is that it's important not to forget that non-tenure track faculty need advocates too. And so as a part of those discussions and trying to not formalize with rules and regulations, but create a network of advocates and identify who is good at what, and make sure to include the non-tenure track faculty in that pool of people, not allow it to just be tenure track in that pool of people who can offer help, and who can receive help. So that's where you won't find it in writing anywhere, but through networking with others, that's where you'll hear about finding that support or offering your own support to others who might need it.
I know we're running out of time, but I had two other quick questions. I don't know if we have the time to go over them or not real quickly, but so do we have true faculty representation on the Faculty Senate or no? And then the other question is, do we have voting rights, which I know in like my last college we did. So NDT faculty had voting rights within their college when we had college votes.
In your college, it will depend on your college charter. And so I would look to your particular college. You should be able to get those rules pretty quickly. And I think that in the past, even if it was permissible, Lauren, I don't know if you see it differently, but I did not feel that there was any representation for non-tenure track on the Faculty Senate, but we do have representation now. And we are eligible to serve in roles that we were not eligible for in the past. This is all somewhat new and it's promising.
From what I understand, the Faculty Senate seats are by groups, and anyone can go up for a seat of any line. So yeah, there are quite a few lecturers on the Senate as well as on the exec committee of the Faculty Senate. So yeah, so I know that is, we're hearing a lot of variety in voting rights within different departments. So I will say that's one thing that we are not seeing a lot of consistency on yet.
In colleges.
In colleges, yeah. But that is something that is a huge topic, and the administration is very aware of that. So there has been, that is something that is being looked at for sure within the Faculty Senate, and it's definitely on the provost's radar.
I can add a little bit to that in that I served on the bylaws committee for the College of Health and Public Service. Lauren and I both are in that college, in different departments, but in that college. And we surveyed other colleges about what they do and don't do. We also compared university policy and we found some differences, but I can tell you that HPS offers voting rights for non-tenure track faculty. And there are some differences, but they are minimal differences now. It was a significant revision that we did just last fall. So look at your college first and see what those rules say. Every college has to revise those, I believe, within a certain period of time after the arrival of a new dean. We had a new dean arrive 2 summers ago, and that's why we were revising ours. But it's almost always an active revision process in most colleges, but look at your college bylaws as a good place to start.
Thank you.
All right, so we are past time. I did want to say that, so we are continuing on this year. We are with our virtual events. And so we will get all of your email addresses and so we will send you information. We're kind of still in the planning process of our first event, so don't have any detail at this point. We meet on Monday, right, Leslie? But to kind of get the calendar solidified. So we will get all of that. Please be looking for an email. We do have an NTFMN email that we use. I guess we should have put it on here, sorry. So I think they are maybe kicking us out now. Something just popped up.